Do you want your business to grow faster? Are you open to new and out-of-the-box ways to drive revenues and increase value? How do you imagine the most successful entrepreneurs and business leaders double, triple, or expand their businesses tenfold or more? The answer is Deals. This is a weekly podcast featuring conversations with business owners, executives, and leaders as we reveal behind-the-scenes details that give you, our listeners, the confidence to pursue your own deal-driven growth. On this show, we discuss a huge variety of deals, everything from large, complex mergers and acquisitions, capital raising, joint ventures, strategic alliances, real estate, affiliate and sponsorship deals, franchising, and more. My name is Corey Kupfer, and I've been supporting deal-driven growth for businesses for over 35 years as a successful entrepreneur, professional negotiator, and attorney. My goal is to help you strategize, plan for, find, and complete deals that will help your company grow faster. Welcome to the Deal Quest podcast. Let's get started. Alexandria Seydel brings a unique perspective to business growth, combining her legal expertise in mergers and acquisitions with a passion for hands-on business development and supporting business owners through their journey. She's an M&A attorney by a trade like me, but maybe she's smarter than me because she has evolved into the founder of Ripple Edge Advisors, which is a company that helps growth stage executives go from feeling stuck and stagnant to feeling clear and confident in their next stage of business growth or strategic exit planning. Alex, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, I think they sometimes call us, people like me, recovering lawyers, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? It's funny because there are so many of our colleagues that are that have moved out of the law or didn't love it or whatever, and I still do. Now, I didn't love it when I used to work for someone else doing it, but it's been 30 plus years since that's been true. So, in any case, so listen, before we get into what you're doing now and helping business owners grow and exit and how your legal background informs that, and obviously all the deal experience you have, I want to take you back to when you were a little kid growing up, maybe 8, 10, 12 years old. What did you want to be? Because I'm guessing certainly the consulting, exit planning, strategy stuff wasn't it, and maybe a lawyer wasn't it either. You tell me.
Well, I wanted to be a soccer player. If you want like the full kid true answer. Okay. I remember going to the 99 Women's World Cup final, the famous one where Brady Chastain scores the winning PK. So I'm at that final and I'm like, I want to play in college and if possible for the national team. So I wanted it to be my profession. I didn't quite make it all the way there. I did it for school and I loved it every second of it.
But you played D1, right? You were D1 actually, right?
I played for University of Iowa and loved it and was fortunate to start every game of my career. So didn't quite make the national team, but close. That would be that. But I think when everybody found out who's known me since I was young, found out I was a lawyer, they were like, oh yeah, no crap. Like, you were kind of opinionated and maybe a little argumentative, and you had a lot of thoughts and a lot of kind of gumption, I think, as a kid. So I don't think anyone who's known me since that age was surprised that I chose.
Surprised, right? Even though it's funny because people had a similar reaction to me. And in fact, my mom likes to tell a story on how I convinced her. I was very convincing. And like in third grade, I sort of negotiated and convinced her to come in and cook for the class. And apparently my ethical lineup wasn't as good back as the third grader because I apparently gave her the misimpression that there were going to be a bunch of mothers cooking. And it turned out it was her. I don't think I outright lied, but I think I omitted certain,
She was under the impression, there were some assumptions made that were
right, which I did not dispel. So
my version was, I was raised Irish Catholic, and my version was, I get to wear flip-flops to church because Jesus did.
Oh my God.
And I was like, Jesus wore flip-flops, don't I get to?
I love it.
That was like the start of, I think, forming my negotiating brain.
I love it. One more question looking back. What was your first deal of any type? Maybe it was, as a beginning lawyer, or maybe it was something when you were younger. Who knows?
First deal of any type. So I actually worked in like banking and mortgages before I went to law school. So that, I think it was really awesome to see someone's buying a home. It's often one of the biggest transactions they do in their entire life.
Yes.
So to understand and see and feel that about that, especially their first purchase, is often so personal and so intimate. And there are things they care about that might not seem important to you. So like really getting to assess that and learn those skills before I even went to law school, I think was a really unique and cool service segment of the service industry and professional services. So I loved that. I had a really great mentor that taught me how to kind of listen for people's pain points and feel what they cared about. And that often, guided us in how we supported them through the deal. So really there first. And then definitely wasn't buying or selling companies at that time,
Yeah.
not until post law school.
So then, you spent a long stretch as a lawyer. Were you always an M&A lawyer?
M&A was the primary function. We had a firm size about 30 attorneys. So we did absolutely a little bit of general corporate too, some securities as well, not any public stuff, but private securities. So helping small companies raise capital. And a little bit of commercial real estate as well, which I also had, kind of that mortgage background. So could jump into those types of deals. So a lot of various transactional matters, really kind of anything. I used to tell people, unless you're getting sued or you want to sue someone, I can probably help you.
I love it. Had you had growing up, whether it was people in your family or whatever, had you had any exposure to deals of lawyers? Because I know I didn't, right? I mean, I grew up as a little middle class kid in Brooklyn. My parents always worked for someone else. Wasn't around entrepreneurs. I wasn't around professionals. My dad worked at a company and my mom became a nurse. So I remember how, whether it was the public securities work that I did or the M&A and leveraged buyout work early in my career, was all so brand new to me. And it was a new world and new people. And I didn't travel in circles with money or anything like that.
No,
Was your experience similar?
very similar. My dad's a truck driver, mom's a nurse, both truly blue collar, very heads down. You work, you show up to work every day, and that's how you create value. Definitely no language around the value of money and capital and how it moves through systems or economic engines of any kind. I was always very curious about it. And even my parents, values around money were very different than
Yeah.
how I think mine have become to be. And I think so much of that, like you said, I felt a little behind in law school because mentality wise, because so many of my peers were lawyers' kids or doctors' kids, maybe, a finance kid in theirs. And I was like, I have to learn not only the content of what we're learning, but also picking up strategy and almost like mindset and framework of how they operated in the world that they just got by swimming this with their family. And I absolutely was similar to you, definitely not surrounded by folks that kind of thought like that.
Yeah. Hopefully the audience cares about this because I'm super curious myself about, the lawyer's journey who's involved in something else. But the other thing that I found, though, because of that, is it actually had me dig in more, right? I remember back in the day when it was the beginning of the mortgage-backed security stuff, way, 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 way before the crisis and everything. And we did a $500 million shelf registration for the Dime Savings Bank. And it was within 2 or 3 years after this, securities had been created and the legal documents had been created. They were 180-page agreements with 40 pages of defined terms. And I figured out that not even the partner I was working for understood these documents. And I spent day and night digging into them. So I understood how all of these work and even found problems in the documents as a third-year associate. I won't tell the whole story, but it became like a political issue because I was questioning things on the deal. And the partner
Totally.
was like, what are you doing? Because he didn't even understand it. So did you have did sort of that not coming from that world, was that a driver for you as well, like it was for me?
Oh, 1,000%. To me, it was like, well, here's an opportunity to be more prepared because if you weren't maybe just by network or nature or connection, you weren't given some opportunities, you had the opportunity to be more prepared than anyone in the room. So exactly that kind of work. And also really being thoughtful about, I think maybe some people call this code switching, but I didn't know I was doing this at the time.
Yes.
I was also very fortunate that my parents are incredibly social. My dad is one of those people that speaks to the janitor and the CEO exactly the same way.
Yeah, yeah.
For him, that worked in a social setting, but I understood that also to work in a professional setting and how absolutely respect and integrity were exactly the same in those two conversations, but the language you use and how do you relate to them and how do you hear their story And how do you ask them questions about themselves? I mean, I think I got that because I wasn't in those boardroom type engagements as a young or conversations as a young person. I was more surrounded by a mix economic stratifications of the US. So I think that was a huge advantage. There was no assumption that everybody spoke like me or understood, came from my background. And I think that almost made me more open and thoughtful about how I connected with folks.
Love that. Okay, so you practice law, doing mainly M&A for a bunch of years, and now you're focused mainly on Ripple's as advisors. Before we even talk about more specifically what that does and what you're seeing in the marketplace or whatever, I love people's stories on how they evolve. I think everything starts with mindset, right? Whether it's why somebody becomes an entrepreneur or a deal maker or whatever. I talk about the difference between. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about the difference between an employee and an entrepreneurial mindset. I have this whole piece of a talk I do on the difference between an entrepreneurial mindset and a deal maker mindset, because those are also different. But there are so many lawyers who don't love what they do, and they just continue to do it because there's a bit of a golden handcuffs there if you're making decent money or whatever. And I'm not saying you hated it, but I'm just saying, just as an open question, what had you decide to make the transition and focus on Ripple's Edge?
Yeah, I actually didn't hate it. I loved it. I loved law school and I loved deals. I loved every deal was different. I loved every business owner was different. I loved every business was different. And I was at the size where I got to work on everything from a steel deal to the sale of an accounting firm to a true tech company. So I was getting so much business knowledge, and I was really fortunate I had mentors that would allow me not only to pick their brains on the legal questions, but come in and say, hey, I've never seen this business choice here. Why do you think the owner would make this? And they would give me, I mean, they were lawyers on billable hours too, and they would give me their business brain and teach me and help me learn about business alongside all the legal stuff. That absolutely was part of it. And then I had a huge life shift. My fiance died suddenly. He was also a lawyer. I met him in law school. So I had to step away. I really wanted to give myself some time and space to heal and to focus on just waking up every day and keep breathing. And I did that, tried to come back to private practice, and I just had an incredible firm, an incredible equity owner. She was incredible, literally. It just wasn't a fit anymore. Something was like, it just grating. And I kept having these owners, and usually of small companies, come to me and say, so Alex, every time I get off the phone, I feel better after we chat. And we chat so much more than just legal. We chat strategy or mindset. But I don't call you because I don't want to pay the billable hour. And I'm like, yeah, I don't want you to pay the billable hour either. I'm like, so what about this? I was like, what about once a month you buy me lunch and we go for 90 minutes and you get my brain? Bring whatever you want. And I'm down. Like, let's do it. And I'd come out of these lunches and I would just be like vibrating with energy.
Yeah.
Just like, oh my gosh, I love this so much. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. So, and one of the times they had a sales and marketing question that I couldn't answer. And I called Kim Wozni, who was a longtime colleague of mine, who I met, no joke, on a networking app. It's like LinkedIn and Tinder had a baby, and it was networking. And we clicked immediately and just kind of became networking friends over our careers. And I called her and was like, Kim, I have a sales and marketing question I can't answer. Do you want to hop on this call? And she's like, yeah. And we get off the call and we're like, I think we just created a company. So she's the operator. She was employee one of a startup. She really took them entire departments, sales, marketing, and operations from the ground up, hired the teams, managed the teams, takes them to 9 million by year 4, absolutely just kills it. So she's the one that actually knows how to do all the stuff. I'm just the one that wears the legal and the strategy hats and was really trained, as you know, as an early in your career, you're the one who's looking under the hood of the business in a data room, nothing but documents, and you have to understand what's going on. How is it structured? Where's the risk? Why did they choose? What else are we not seeing? Or is there something here that we need to ask more about or better understand? So I think that looking under the hood and asking the questions and kind of peeling back the onion to understand the roots of how businesses operate, where the risk lies, and then now, which is much more fun for me, where the growth opportunities are. So really just kind of came out completely naturally. And like I said, I loved being a lawyer. I just think that the version of me that operates here and how I help people has shifted.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. I mean, obviously, the trigger for that reevaluation is challenging, and I'm sorry to hear that. And I love the fact that you come back from that. And you're in your passion, right? For me, it's one of the reasons why I love working with entrepreneurs, right? Because especially the ones who are true entrepreneurs. Not that I'm judging, but like somebody who's bought themselves a job and they're miserable is not exciting to
Yeah.
me, right? But
No,
somebody who has a vision and loves what they do and they're passionate about their product, service, mission, whatever it is, and that's what you are with this, which is amazing. I was laughing to myself a little bit because any of the listeners who know, I mean, obviously, data rooms are common and have been common for a long time. But when I was at the beginning stage of my career, because I'm a couple of years or a couple of decades older than you,
oh, just a
um,
being older.
there was no such thing as a data room because there was actually a room or a warehouse or a FedEx dump of physical documents that you'd be sorting through back in the day. So that's how I started. But yeah, thank
I
God.
mean, my appreciation and gratitude for you and trailing, being the trailblazer that probably was sitting in a room with no windows doing that work so that
Oh my God.
later generations could.
It was another one of these incentives, like not growing up in privilege, right? To really do a good job in press and move so quickly out of that due diligence and be able to push that down to the first year associate below you or the summer associate, whatever,
Oh,
and get higher level work. Trust me, it was a big
totally.
incentive when
Oh,
you're in
I
a hot
believe.
warehouse on air conditioned looking through boxes of physically stored folders. So,
Yes, yes. Oh, I believe. I mean, that same. I still remember too the first time ever having being a more senior associate, getting to manage and engage and teach and all those fun things too, but also being like, oh my gosh, there's someone that I get to send this to, and I'm going to help them. Like, I don't have to do it. Oh goodness, yeah.
exactly. So, talk to us a little bit, more specifically. I mean, you started to get into it a little bit, and we mentioned it a little bit in your bio. But who does Ripple's Edge Advisors serve? What's the scope of services that you provide? Because you mentioned obviously the deal side. You mentioned marketing questions, right? We talked about exit. So, there's a number of aspects in there. Give us a little deeper feel on what you're doing there.
Yeah, we say growth stage owner operators. So really folks that are probably have been established for at least 3 or 5 years or more. They're growing. Maybe for the first time, they're actually thinking like, what is my business worth? Where am I going? What is the end goal? Right? They've had a little bit of time to breathe post startup phase. And now they're like, what are the exit options? And really kind of starting there with them, starting with like the folks that are working on maybe have never been through an exit, or maybe they've done it as a C suite, but not an owner. That's also a totally different kind of perspective in really helping them envision. We start with like, what do you want your exit to look like? There are so many different flavors. Like we do like a visioning exercise. I'm like, okay, if you're looking to exit in 5 years, I want you to literally like close your eyes and think about what it looks and feels like. What do you do every day? Because so much of that answer really helps us build backwards
Yes.
from, okay, what now we can make a little bit more of an exit strategy and exit plan that gets you there, because there are differences between people have different priorities like legacy. Do they care most about their team? Do they care most about top dollar, which is totally fine. But
Right.
that those answers and that exercise really inform us to build, okay, now as we're growing the company, there are structure and strategic things we can do and choices we can make, because now we know maybe more than likely private equity isn't our buyer. If we really care most about legacy and team, we know that private equity's goal and thrust is maybe not focused on that area, and that's okay. So now if we're looking for a strategic buyer, obviously we're going to do different things as we grow to appeal to that strategic buyer versus a private equity or more institutional buyer.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, I'm a big visioning guy anyway, right? Even as I mean, I am for myself. I actually have these visioning processes that I facilitate for people, not frankly as a business. I mean, some people say, "Oh, you should charge for this." I just do it for friends and whatever because I
Yeah,
doing it
I
right.
love it.
And my wife and I do visioning regularly. Even with my clients, even when they come to me and they say, "Hey, Corey, we're looking to do this deal," very few lawyers ask why, right? I want to know why, not only because it helps me understand our objectives and what we want to do in the deal, but I also want to understand and make sure it fits into their longer term vision. Like, are we doing this for the right reasons? What what are the drivers for this, right? I love you do the visioning part. And yeah, you're going to say something, and then there's something I want to ask you about.
Oh no, I was gonna give you kudos. Like, you're right. I actually don't think most deal lawyers do that. They're there to do the deal and get the deal done. And that doesn't mean they're not supporting and rooting for their clients, but I don't really think they're trained to ask those types of questions or to have that kind of thought from the beginning. So
Right,
love
right.
it. I would like
They
to
don't think it's
clap
their
for it.
role. They don't think it's their role to do
Yeah,
that, right? I mean, I've always built myself as a strategist, negotiator, and deal maker, not just the deal maker side. But the other thing that I think what you do helps, and I want to get you just because this is something that's really a pet peeve is not the right. It's important to me because I've seen it, and in fact, I've had some folks on the podcast, and I'm running the entrepreneurs. I'm chairing the entrepreneurs organization Deal Exchange Conference, and we have a speaker on this, which is this conversation of post-exit depression. And I'm not just talking about, yes, some people sort of get lost for a little bit, but I'm talking like some people, it's real clinical depression. And this is what may be shocking to people who don't know this, but it happens to people who have life-changing and generational changing level exits, like
totally.
more money than they could ever.
Yeah,
And I don't want to oversimplify it, but it starts with the fact that they don't know who they are post transition, and they haven't looked past at that. So that's one of the additional benefits. In addition to having you be able to plan and help them get there, I'm assuming that it starts to address that post exit. But yeah, I'd love to hear from you on that.
I agree. I think before we even started Ripple's Edge, there were so many times post deal, whether it was a post closing adjustment period, right? We're coming in and doing some earnout calculations with clients. And the ones I would really, almost always, the ones I loved the most would come back and be like, it's not what I thought it was, right? And for a plethora of reasons, some business specific, some money specific, some, but often lifestyle or personal expectation that I think they just didn't think it was going to be like this. And another motivator for trying to do what we're doing about being proactive, exiting your way. There's work to be done there. And if you're proactive about it instead of reactive, again, I think there were so many folks too that had built beautiful little businesses and an LOI would come through the door. And like you said, it was life changing money that they had never even contemplated. And then all of a sudden it's like, Alex, I got to sign it. Don't negotiate a deal. Don't even edit the LOI. And I'm like, wait. But I was coming in too late, just as the deal attorney there, especially on the sell side. So really just someone who can be a second set of eyes and ears, someone who can help you not only be your advocate legally, but ask you maybe some hard questions about what, like you said, why are we doing this? Like, let's get really clear on that part because it will help us get so much clarity and confidence about how we're growing the business.
Love that. Talk to me a little bit about, you talked about, growth entrepreneurs. Talk to me about, any particular industries, size of company, geography, things like that.
Yeah, we're geographic and industry agnostic. So across the US, we've got Pennsylvania, Reno, Nevada, Texas, Illinois, obviously. And size wise, we say like our sweet spot is like 2 to 20 million in top line revenue. We have a few bigger and a few smaller.
Yep.
But really, to be honest, the people I want to work with are usually it's about psychographic. It's the humans that can come to the table and say, the entrepreneurs that can come to the table and say, look, I'm really good at this part of my business. This is where I kill it. This is my zone of genius. But these other parts over here, they either keep me up at night or I feel like I'm not good at it, etc. Right? If someone comes to the table and is just an open, honest, vulnerable human being, the amount of work we can do and the amount of support we can give them is exponential, as opposed to some entrepreneurs who think they can wear 90 of the 100 hats we have to wear, which is just wild to me. So I think and those people that are being proactive about it. I do think M&A as an industry, which has changed so much since I've even been in it, it is being talked about way more. I mean, we talk a lot about the boomers and how much of the subsection of American economy are owned by those folks that are looking to have those succession plans, and the millennials and the Gen Xers and actually Gen Zers and Gen Xers, actually, if we sandwich the millennials, have this opportunity for this incredible wealth transfer of great lower middle market, small and medium businesses that are incredible little assets, beautiful little businesses to buy. It's making me hopeful because there are more people that are finding us and saying, and again, folks in their 30s, 40s, early 50s who have built businesses and saying, okay, I'm not under the gun right now. I don't have to sell by the end of the year. Hearing that I should think about it, and I think you guys might be the people we should talk to. I'm like, yes, it's us. Come, let's go. And let's do some exit strategy. And before we even call it a strategy, exploration. Let's have a space where we actually get the opportunity to go back to 30,000 feet, think about why we created this business in the first place, and go from there.
So after you do this visioning process with them and you figure some of this stuff out, drill down for me a little bit on what are the specific ways you help them grow, prepare for exit, all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. We start with this awesome tool that I love. It's called an exit readiness assessment. And we start with almost every client this way. And it's this questionnaire, takes us about an hour. We walk through it together. And it kind of just takes a temperature and a pulse of all the different parts of your business and what is the current state. So where are we? And it is a hypothetical for if, gosh forbid, I got sick tomorrow and had to sell my company, what would the market say? How would it view my valuation? How would it view my readiness for the transaction? And again, it helps, I think, owners who, again, they understand we want growing revenue, we want strong margins and strong EBITDA. But I think it helps shine some light on all the other pieces that we as deal people know that buyers look for when they're looking for a truly transferable asset. So I think, it focuses on obviously processes and culture and executive team and key man risk or key woman risk, right? How much of that beautiful company you've built lives and breathes only here in your institutional knowledge and brain. So things like that assessment is really important. I think it helps us also get to know their business, right? Like we get to start exploring their business at a deeper level. And then it gives us a roadmap. It produces this report, and this report is theirs to have. Like they don't have to do any engagement with us at all because we're like, look, this is useful if you are going to build your exit plan yourself. But really it helps us identify what are those dials we want to turn. And then at what pace do we want to turn them? Do we have a shorter timeline? Do we want to consider what our exit strategy is in 18 months or 2 years? Or are we more, 5+ years? And then I think it really just helps visualize. It also categorizes. So you go through this questionnaire and it gives you this report and this readiness score. And it categorizes in 3 different columns, which I love. It says, okay, right now, if I had to go to market, here are the things about my business that would be value adds. Second category is value detractors. And then the third is deal killers. And as lawyers, we know corporate legal house is that in order. Everybody knows financials and accounting. If that's a mess and someone comes and loves everything about your business and then they go and look under the hood and they're like, I'll go buy a competitor. So really, again, just helping them take a pulse on where they are, because again, it's such great information to start with when we're doing both the vision work. And then now we have, okay, here's where we are. Where do we want to be? And how do we build that exit strategy to get there?
Yeah, I mean, this is so important, and like when the great thing about identifying the gaps are, especially if you're not having to sell tomorrow, right? If you're doing it 5 years in advance or whatever, is that you can address them. And there are a lot of things that business owners don't know and understand. I mean, listen, in a lot of the entrepreneurial world, this concept of being able to work on your business, not in your business, and not having it be dependent on you, people have with E-Myth and all these other things or whatever, like it's something that almost no entrepreneur hasn't heard. But have they really done what they need to do that? I mean, it's funny. We were talking before we went on air that, I was about 3 weeks in Bali in August, and my goal was to be off the grid. And I was 90 to 95, depending on the week, I was 90 to 95% off the grid, which is great. I mean, that's pretty damn good, right? The 5 to 10% where I had to be on the grid showed me a lot, right? It was like, okay, the team's got it 90%, 95% of the time. Where don't they have it? Where am I still the one that's necessary? Okay, great. So now it actually helped me make a business decision on another hire that I'm going to make now, because that was informative. And I actually encourage folks, like, if you say your business can run without you, I don't believe you until you go away for 3 weeks or a month. And it,
Oh, totally.
you know,
We say literally my tagline for that is, and it's often in response to folks that are like, look, I'm not positioning to sell. I want a lifestyle business. And I said, amazing. I want you to have that too. So if you were to go to, I usually say Europe, but if you were to go to Bali for 3 weeks, would your business run without you? And because I'm guessing, again, most entrepreneurs, even if they're not in the place where they're like, I want to think about exit or succession, they're absolutely, I'm sure, in a place where they want more freedom. I mean,
yes.
it's kind of why we all did this. So I'm like, kudos to you, and kudos to see it as an exercise. It gave you more points of data to make better business decisions that make your business more efficient and effective.
Yeah, and that's true whether I'm going to exit now, later, or never, right? It's still,
Exactly.
the thing that I love about best practices for exit strategy is that they're best practices for running a successful business, right? Like, even if you never exit, they're not
Yes.
inconsistent in any way if you're doing the core ones that are right, which is great. Another one that comes up sometimes, like, just another example for the audience, and I'm happy to have you give, another one is, and then I want to move. Like, if you concentration risk, great example. You have one client
100%.
that's 40% of your business. Okay, that's a big negative on valuation and certainly on deal structure. Sometimes you can structure, right? So now, that's always a two-edged sword, because it's sort of like, if you have that opportunity to have that phenomenal huge client, you don't want to turn around. But if you have 5 years, maybe you focus on building up some other clients. So not that you reduce that client, but that client's number goes from 40% to 20%.
Totally. Absolutely. Think how much direction, business development direction that informs, like strategy on your sales and marketing. And now being like, okay, we just need a couple more medium clients around us. And another one is, everyone says they have processes in their business. And you're like, okay, I believe that you do. Are they written down? Well, yeah, they're written down. Okay. Are they sitting on some digital shelf somewhere where no one ever actually uses them or references them? So again, I think SOPs, standard operating procedures, is a huge one. And that applies to every business. Every business has those. It's just a matter of which ones of yours do you have written down? Do you have contemplated, written down, and used by the team? That's one of them. I think, what's another one that I think surprises people? Customer concentration is one that people don't even think about. My experience is entrepreneurs get into the business, whatever their business is, because they're really good at one part of it, whether it's the technical part of it, or it's like, I'm a really great salesman and I believe in my product or service. They don't have the legal, maybe, they're not CFOs or lawyers. So I think absolutely looking at, again, what does your legal house, your legal and financial house look like? And are you using the financial data that you're collecting right now? Are you using that proactive? Can you tell a story about it? Or is it just some like, well, our bookkeeper logs our transactions and yes, they're mostly clean, but there's so much there where the entrepreneur can't be the master of every piece of their business. They have their zone that they're great at. And I think helping them identify that, and then pulling in, helping them support of like, okay, if there are gaps, if it isn't us who helps you, we absolutely have two big networks that we can introduce you to make sure that you do get the support you need.
Yeah.
Or sometimes it's like, okay, my bookkeeper might be great, but actually I probably need either a controller or a fractional CFO at this point. My
Right.
growth has been significant. We're in a different place, different category of size of business, and we need a little bit more of that sophisticated touch. Yes, here's 3 fractional CFOs we love. Not only will we send an email for you, we will hop on the call to make sure your questions are answered. It's a good fit for both directions, and then help onboard them. So like, this was always, I think, one of my biggest pain points as a lawyer was I didn't feel like I had great relationships with my clients, accountants or tax strategists, whoever was doing all that other great work to support them. I always wished we were a little like, it was more of a team,
Yes.
and it was a little bit more of collective support. So that's another thing we're really trying to impress on our clients is like, both let's identify the gaps. If you don't have a person, we'll help you find one. And then let me bring them up to speed.
Yeah.
Because you going through 5 onboarding calls with your fractional CFO, which your client did, I'm guessing if you had just let me talk to them directly, we could have probably put it down to 2.
Right. Love that. Let's talk about a little bit about what you're seeing in the market out there. We hear so much. Another pet peeve of mine is like all these information and all these talking heads, right, about the economy and how interest rates or inflation or tariffs or whatever are going to affect things. And listen, I'm not saying there isn't some value in that, but they tend to make blanket statements. And, we know, I mean, from your from your lawyer experience and from your experience of what you do now, that geography, industry, segment, specific companies, yes, maybe there's some macro trends, and I'm not saying that cost of capital isn't something that affects the deal market generally, but it doesn't necessarily apply. I mean, it's sort of like you mentioned earlier, like there's always opportunities even in challenging times. And then there's also different ways, different factors affect different businesses, different companies, different industries. So obviously it's tough to make blanket statements, but we do see trends, and folks like you who know the deal market and do it a lot and speak to people. So anything particular you're seeing around sectors, around funding, around cost of capital, around impact on any of these factors like interest rates, inflation, tariffs, that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, tariffs have been, if you're in a place that's getting manufactured parts or getting any supplies from overseas, that is something that is really tough because strategies around that are limited. So that's tough. Obviously, last year being an election year, I think I hate that this is always the talking point, but this is to me the blanket statement that actually mattered because I think it impacted our mindset so much and people holding capital and saying, nope, I'm not going to do anything for a while. And then I'm going to see again, I'm still figuring out in 25 what that's looking like. Again, I think tariffs changes it for a whole different sector. We have 3 different, what we would call like almost like tech adjacent. They're not traditional tech, but they've got tech flavor. And they're not, I'm not talking about everyone who just slaps AI empowered or whatever. I can't remember the phrase that everybody says with AI. AI is amazing and helpful. I actually think it's going to be a net positive. But I'm not even talking about that sector who's had no problem raising capital, but
Nice.
but really the ones who are preparing for exit. We have several legal tech, agricultural tech, accounting tech, and climate tech that are all just adding a little bit more tech application to more traditional areas that just have been slower to adoption.
Yep.
And man, that market right now, those markets are hot. Like there are some people that are again coming to me and we're meeting them at some time and they're like, well, I got 3 LOIs last week. And I'm like, well, okay, talk to me about them. Send me them. Let's see what they are. And like at minimum, 2 of the 3 are like serious. They're real. They're legitimate. They're not
And you're not
just
talking about from somebody who hired a banker to run a process and draw them in. They're just getting approached, right?
they actually are just getting approached usually by strategic buyers
Yeah.
who see the opportunity right now to do a little bit more. It's not a full roll up, but it's more like a collective service instead of very like stratified one off. So, one of our biggest clients right now is a legal tech services company that specifically does medical records retrieval. Again, they're just putting a little bit of tech enabled around that, really solving a major pain point for lawyers that work in that space. And then they're getting so much interest from other legal service tech providers. So people helping with process servers, people doing court reporting in a different way. I think it's just it's like these major industries, like again, accounting, legal, those 2 are the ones we're seeing a lot of, and putting just a little bit more tech around their vendors and their services and really doing it better. It's just those industries have a lot of still room to grow, I think.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah, it's a fascinating time, especially with tech, and obviously AI is all the talk, but it's not,
It's not the end all be all.
it's not
That's
the
for
end all
sure.
be all. And frankly, there are many, many true AI, but then there's also all the other firms that have been using some sort of algorithm or machine learning or whatever
Yeah.
that now are branding AI because they know it's hot, right? So
Yeah. Well, and I think there's going to be, and I know everybody else is talking about this too, but like I think there's going to be a backlash, just general consumers and people that, again, I know that's happening. Like, this is a silly example, but I use LinkedIn a lot for work, right? And I didn't as a lawyer. Now I do for our company. And people are deeply frustrated by all of the ways that AI features touch them in a way that is just feels less human.
Yeah.
So, like, to add something to have a great little solid business that doesn't need AI, but says, hey, we're actually humans showing up doing the job. We just do it well. I think there's going to be like a interesting swing back to that. Similar to like post COVID, we were doing everything virtual, right?
Yeah.
And we all were like, give us a human. Like,
Right. We
I
want
just
a
want to
human
do,
experience. Give me
yes,
a
like
retreat.
music
I
and
want to go be with people for a weekend.
concert tickets, like went out.
Yeah.
The prices went through the roof because everybody was like, just give me live music and a human body. I'll just bump up against someone. So I think there's going to be an interesting, I don't know how that's going to fully pan out, but I think people are going to get sick of it. I don't know. It feels similar to me of like when private equity is making such a big push in a lot of professional services. So like my dermatologist got bought, and like that deeply changed my relationship with my dermatologist. And I was like, I don't know. I might actually specifically seek out it has interesting, I think sometimes unintended effects.
Yeah. Before I ask you my final two questions, is there anything else that you want to share, whether it's about your company or what you're seeing in the market or anything that comes to mind that I haven't asked you that would be useful?
I'll say something like I can offer to the audience is I'm a person that left legal practice because the billable hour didn't always make sense to me in my brain and how we help businesses. So I would love to make the offer to just say, like, if you just want to talk through exit or growth or whatever, like, please don't hesitate to reach out. It isn't an expectation that you'll become a client. It isn't an expectation that I'm tracking every 6 minutes as I was required in my previous life. More just like, I love talking to great humans doing fun things. And there are so many cool businesses out there. My meeting link is public on my LinkedIn and in my email signature. So I try to be generous with my time because I had others do that before me, and how much I learned, and actually from lawyers who were very generous with their time, unusually. I love having those great conversations with people doing cool things.
Well, that's a very generous offer. That's awesome. And it leads me actually into my second to last question, which is where can people find out more about you?
Yeah. So my full name is Alexandria Seydel. I go by Alex, but LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn a lot. You can shoot me an email. I just love to chat with good humans, and whether or not we can do business at that moment or immediate, obvious ways of how we do business is not really the thrust of kind of how I try to spend my days. It's just connecting and the business flows. Like I'm a huge believer that, Corey, that's how we got connected, by a friend, Kara Katz, who I connected with on LinkedIn. And we kind of made a friendship, and she was like, you have to talk to Corey. And the second you and I talked, we're like, we know exactly why she connected us. Right. I think those folks that have that mentality is it's infectious. It's fun. It's what keeps the long days that much easier. Like, just had great conversations with good humans, and good stuff will flow from it.
Love it. My final question on the podcast, so, is about my highest value in life, which is freedom. And for me, that means everything from freedom from oppression for all people around the world to why I've been an entrepreneur for decades and haven't had a boss. What does freedom mean to you, and how does it impact your life and business?
That's such a great question. A word just came to mind, and I don't want to say, I'm having like a hard time saying it, but I do think it's safety. I think it's safety. And I think safety sometimes means different things to different people. And I want to honor whatever that means for whoever's listening. For me, it was. I mean, I think being in a very middle class family, we absolutely weren't like, can't get food on the table, but a lot of decisions were made in my family based on financial restraint. So that is what freedom means to me, is having the luxury to spend the capital, what feels like very hard earned capital from other hard earned capital from other entrepreneurs, is the freedom it gives to express the life you want to live. But my point is, like, I think just the freedom to feel safe and secure and really get to use my capital as an expression of self, and whatever that means.
Love that. Love that. Alex, thanks for being such a great guest on the Deal Quest podcast.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Corey. I would do this with you every week.
Love that. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Deal Quest, where we help you understand how deal-driven growth can be your ticket to freedom. If you are interested in finding out more about my law firm, the services we provide to entrepreneurial and growing companies across industries all over the country, and my partner Brian Megan and I, and my amazing team, just head over to cupforlaw.com. That's cupforlaw.com, and if you want to follow more of my content, head over to my LinkedIn page where I post regularly. I'm Corey Kupfer. Until next week, wishing you the freedom and financial prosperity that I know your Deal Quest will bring.